Hi, everyone. This is Lauda Leon, Sovereign Key, and today I'm going to bring you a very special guest. I wanted to let you know that I do realize I haven't been able to make very many videos since my accident. And I've had to have several surgeries and just recovering and getting back to myself. So it's been a bit of a long haul, and but I wanted to let you all know that I'm still taking a bit of a break as I go through this and spend the time I need on what needs to be done. So I just want to thank you all for being patient, and it's going to take a little while longer because I will be needing another surgery. So yeah. So, but I will try. It's yeah, been a bit of a challenge to manage it all, but yeah, I want to thank you all, and I want to thank you all for being very patient, and I can't wait for today to have our special guest, Cris Vleck, Cris Vleck, CrisVleck. Cris doesn't have an H, it's important. He has a lot of very pertinent information that I feel is very important. So we're going to be welcoming him in a moment. Lauda Leon of Sovereign Key, and I want to welcome this really great guest who has incredible information that I feel really needs to get out there far and wide. And it is my hope that this video will be downloaded by everybody and then spread about all over the place, because there's a lot of shadow banding, and there's a lot of censoring, and a lot of deleting, and a lot of well, totalitarian tactics. So this is Cris Vleck, who wrote a great PDF and also is an investigator, and he's going to be speaking to everyone today about some vital information that every Canadian needs to be aware of, and American, and every country, really, because it's the micro to the macro, right? So maybe you might want to give an introduction, Cris, and let people know your background, and maybe go into the PDF you wrote, go into the research you do, go into the information, and yeah, let it rip.
Okay, well, my name is Cris Vleck. I am new to the spotlight scene, I'd say. I'm kind of the behind the scenes guy, and I really like it there, but I've kind of been thrust into the forefront over this PDF lately. My background is in communications. I'm a 25-year communications professional, and that's been in the form of sketch comedy, stand-up comedy. I've written scripts, I've written television commercials, I've written television scripts. And then in the last 15 years or so, Once I had kids, I backed off and did my own ad agency for about 15 years. So, so I've got a lot of different backgrounds. I've also worked for the government, doing social media for them for quite a while. I didn't last because I'm not really fit for their culture, apparently. So, so yeah, I've got a lot of different aspects of communications. And I've also been on the inside track of a lot of newsworthy events. So I've seen firsthand on the inside of it how news organizations lie. I can guarantee you that they lie and there's zero accountability for it. So they just keep getting away with it. So, so right from the get-go, right about after our 6-week lockdown, and we were still going into restrictions and lockdowns, yet all of the case counts and death counts were going down. That was about then that I knew we'd been had. So, I started looking at not only what was happening, but for me, I really need to break it down and see why things were happening as well. And that sort of started the journey that's leading me here today.
So you were able to follow a breadcrumb trail.
Mm-hmm.
That exposed the underpinnings of this plan, this agenda that is being orchestrated. Would you say more so in first world countries, more so in crown countries, or would you say that it just seems to be there's a focus on first world countries?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I think the first world countries are the hardest in some ways to overthrow, and in other ways it's seeming like it's very easy. In the last year and a half, it's become brutally, painfully clear that our democracy is extremely fragile, and how easily it can be usurped. And so. So yeah, I'd say there's a global thing going on, and we'll get into what I wrote and the aspects of what I wrote. And that's just a small portion of the puzzle. So when we're talking about it, it will be clear that that's not the only thing going on, of course, but it's one of the things going on. But I think there's a grand global conspiracy. It's been talked about for years.
Absolutely.
Think, if you're up on the World Economic Forum, that there's a coordinated attack, and that this is kind of a practice run. A lot of people are saying, well, the Vax Pass was where they're heading. This was the end game, and it's not even close.
No.
This is about step 2 on several steps. So we're way early in this whole process, and I think they're going to be applying what they learned here to the climate change process as well. So
I completely agree with you, and the disturbing thing about this is, so this is actually being orchestrated very easily because it's not even being done by force. People are literally giving up their rights and not having any critical thinking ability except for the few. Mm-hmm. And they're giving it over completely. Mm-hmm. Without, it's shocking to me what I'm witnessing.
Yeah, but I mean, we shouldn't underestimate it. This is literally the most sophisticated psychological warfare plan that has ever been enacted on the civilization. And it is not to be underestimated because it is extremely coordinated and it's extremely sophisticated. So we just have to be super smart in determining and deciphering what's actually going on,
Right. And with that knowledge, perhaps even what we can do. So we're going to get into all of that, and we're going to just go into what you discovered that led you to write that PDF. Sure. And how expansive this is, and what the preliminary versus the end game looks like.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we'll talk about the PDF, and then we'll talk about really my motivation behind writing it. So the PDF, it's if you've seen the video, I think it's just broken about 90,000 views, which is unbelievable. If I knew what made a viral video, I'd probably be doing this interview from a boat, but I don't. But this is clearly taken off, and I have some guesses as to why that is. But basically, if you haven't seen the video, it's a 28-minute video that is trying to pare it down to bullet points on a 12-page document that I wrote. And the document just lays out a lot of things that are going behind the scenes. And fairly early on in 2020, I got onto the World Economic Forum like a lot of people did. We saw that something was going like off center with that. And so a lot of people got onto that pretty quickly. And I started realizing that the World Economic Forum's clients were a lot of the same clients that Trudeau was giving money to inexplicably. You know, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's something like 60 million to Apple, and why do they need it? And same thing for MasterCard, and same thing for SNC-Lavalin. That's obviously, you know, out there and everybody knows about that. And I started noticing there was a correlation between the money he was giving out and clients or partners with the World Economic Forum. So I started digging into that, but I couldn't quite make all the pieces of the puzzle work, like Loblaws and Canadian Tire and BlackBerry. They didn't quite kind of jive with the theory that I was working on. And after a while, I walked away from it. I wrote a couple blog posts about it, especially about Chrystia Freeland being on the World Economic Forum's board of trustees, which is a massive conflict of interest, obviously. So I sat on that, and you know, it was about a year that I kind of just walked away from it. I started looking into other things. I've been really researching the psychological warfare that Canada's been doing on its own people, and kind of digging into that. And I'll probably do another video on that soon. But I watched a video one day of a guy on TikTok, and he was talking about BlackRock and how BlackRock owns everything, and you can go to Yahoo Finance and verify it. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I went and did that. And it didn't take me long to realize that not only was that true, but just a little bit more digging, I found that the trail kind of led to this company called Vanguard. If you want to know why I got there, how I got there, just download that document. It's a pretty easy read, you know. It lays it out.
I'll link it too for everyone.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you. So this company named Vanguard, they own everything. Plus they own parts of BlackRock. But then you get to who owns Vanguard, and that's where the trail goes cold, because Vanguard owns partial ownership to their clients. So meaning that even though it's a public company, their owners are protected by client confidentiality. So we don't know who that is. And there's a 3-tier client list. There's the regular clients who are $1 million and less, and they're just regular Vanguard clients. And then you get the flagship clients, which are $1 million to $5 million. And then flagship select, which are over $5 million. So we kind of brushed over it, but Vanguard owns literally 10 to 15% of everything on the planet. And you can go to Yahoo Finance and type in like Apple, and then go to holders, and then you'll see Vanguard on the list. You go do it somewhere else, and then somewhere else, and somewhere else, and Vanguard's always there. That includes banks, it includes financial institutions, it includes Amazon and Johnson & Johnson and Coca-Cola. Like, it just goes on and on and on. So it's mind-boggling. So what we really are boiling that down to is there are less than 60,000 people that pretty much get 10 to 15% off every sale on the planet. So, and that's not, you know, and that's also like military equipment and shipping, and it's mind-boggling, and it's all over the planet. So, so that was step one. I started figuring that out. But then I never kind of let that piece of the puzzle go, where Trudeau is giving money to all of these clients that are tied in with the World Economic Forum. And upon digging, I kind of came to the conclusion the World Economic Forum isn't really pulling the strings, but it's more of a marketing propaganda department for Vanguard, because their partners look like a Vanguard holding list, right? So, so we've got all these pieces of the puzzle that are starting to fall into place. And then I kind of went over the lobby list over the federal government and realized that we've got Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau and a whole bunch of Liberal members and conservatives as well. Andrew Scheer is on that list. Michelle Rempel-Garner is on that list. So they're playing both sides. So they're all on board with the Vanguard mission agenda. And then we find out the Vanguard is actually lobbying the client, or the government, the federal government. So there's this circular relationship going on. Mm-hmm. And then you tie in all the money that Trudeau's giving away, and we start realizing that there's not only a circular relationship, but now it's starting to look like Trudeau is taking money away from the Canadian people and padding his own investment portfolio, really, is what it comes down to. So, where it gets shocking is that we know that Facebook and Twitter are, and YouTube as well, are censoring anti-vaccine messaging and anything to go against the general narrative that you see in the mainstream media. But Twitter and Facebook are owned by Vanguard, who also own Moderna and Pfizer. So now it gets really shifty, and I mean, that's enough right there for me for an investigation, right? A police investigation. So that's why it matters. It starts mattering because, it's starting to look like this grand organized corporate synergy plan to basically steal money away from the Canadian people,
And the agenda, not only to steal the money away from the Canadian people, I mean, we can elaborate and go into really what the agenda looks like.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and so here's part of the reason I felt like this video and evidence package were important. And I think it's the same reason that the video has been watched over 90,000 times. And I think it's an alternative theory, meaning that when you tell people the government's lying to you and mainstream media is lying to you. Now, I have enough experience in both of those fields to know that, yes, they do lie, but most people don't. Most people think that the mainstream media has to tell the truth and the government has to tell the truth, but there's no accountability. So most people are running this false assumption that we have to be told the truth, and we just don't. So when you say the government's lying to you and you say the news is lying to you, people inevitably get to the big question, and that's why. And the problem there is this: we want to wake people up, but then when they start to ask why, we tell them things like depopulation. Everybody's coordinating this attack to kill everybody. There's Bill Gates is microchipping people, and they're going to subjugate you, and and it goes all the way up to, depending on where you're at with things, it could be communist takeovers, it could be reptilian people or aliens. It depends on who you talk to, right? So the problem is that those theories are really hard for people who are just trying to wake up. Those theories are really hard to grasp, so I think the power in what I'm putting forward is, it's very simple to grasp. It's just about the money, and that's really plausible for those people who are just coming along, right? For those people who are more aware, we know that there's a lot more going on than that. We know that the money isn't the reason, but people need to start somewhere. And we need to be kind and gracious with that, because you want everybody to wake up, and you say, why isn't everybody waking up? But, the idea of a virus that is potentially dangerous, but we could overcome it with something like vaccines and social distancing, that's a lot less scary than the alternative that people are saying. You got to wake up to the truth, and the truth is much more scary. So why would anybody want to come out of that comfort zone? And they're already terrified. They've been conditioned for a year and a half to be terrified. So we've got to make something that is much more safe for them to come out and start waking up and start looking at the bigger truths. And I think that's hard for people to grasp,
I agree. I also agree that we have to do both. We have to literally impart, enough for the beginners, but also really, what does this legitimately look like is happening? What is this agenda actually getting to? What does it want? What is its ulterior motive and goal at the end? Because
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed.
a lot of the people that watch this channel, for example, are, they know all of this. Not necessarily the Vanguard. All the information you're providing is new as far as I'm concerned, and it's great investigative connections that are vital, and actually, hopefully, will reveal even more through it. I mean, the question is, when you say, why isn't the police investigating this? Well, they're owned as well, and does the Vanguard own them? Like, you have to ask these questions. you know, where can we see more information? Because I know as soon as something's private, they don't really have to give any information. But so we've got all that happening, but we also just looking at this, putting this all together, like putting a puzzle together, really, what does this look like in the end game for what they're doing? This, you know, we talk about the reset, we talk about their agendas where no one will own anything and everyone will be happy, except they'll own everything because they already do. We talk about being automated and assimilated into something that goes beyond transhumanism, because it's no longer transhumanism, it's really trans AI, you know, assimilation with this whole agenda. So what would you say?
Well, I say it's all true. Like if you're politically minded, then it's going to be a communist takeover. If you're globalist minded, then it's going to be the New World Order. It's going to be the Illuminati, and that's where I like the Vanguard theories, because your Illuminati sits right in that flagship select client list, right? So it makes it very real. If you're a Christian or spiritually minded, then this is Revelations fulfilling itself. So I think those are all true. Like, I think there are aspects of all of that. Some people are onto the 5G and what that potentially means, and I think that's true. It's all true. There's a lot going on, right? And I think the biggest thing that we can do is it's going to take all of us, and it's going to take people waking up, right? And part of my approach is trying to help those people who are just kind of getting out of that and a little afraid to look at the bigger picture. This is, as far as I'm concerned, my Vanguard theory is a gateway drug to bigger information, right? And it's a step. And if they can just accept that the government is lying, and they can start accepting that there might be a why behind it, then they're willing to open up. And I think it's a floodgate after that, right? So I think all of that is true. I think we are absolutely in the middle of a communist takeover, 100%, and I think China's behind it. But people discount Russia. I think Russia and China are both two sides of the same exact coin, and they're just doing good cop, bad cop right now. And so I think
to ask you that too.
Yeah, that's my theory on that. Absolutely, we know that there are globalists out there. There's just way too much proof now. So there is a lot going on, but the only way we're going to defeat it is banding together, and that's going to take waking up more than what's awake right now. But on the flip side, if anything good came out of the election, we discovered that the PPC, love them or hate them, wherever you're sitting with that, the PPC is, they got 5% of the populist vote. So that means that's how many people are kind of waking up to what's going on, at least. And 5% seems to be the critical tipping point. And it kind of gets easier from there. So there are a lot of people that are just ready to follow whatever way the wind is going to blow, right? And so this 5% seems to be some sort of population tipping point. So that's encouraging. We seem to be at some sort of grand awakening, hopefully.
Well, and I think that 5% is also inclusive of the people who refuse to vote because they just don't want to participate in this madness. And this rigged madness, because it's rigged,
Well, yeah. I mean, I have no doubt about that too. There's a lot going on, and you have to be really not wanting to pay attention. You're actively ignoring what's going on if you don't want to see what's happening during that. But that kind of drives me crazy. There was about approximately 20 million people who didn't vote. Right now, the outcome still affects you. So by not voting, you're, in a sense, you're still voting. You're just voting for tyranny at that point.
Right. It's like through omission, you're agreeing.
Yeah. And so that's the big fallacy, because that in itself is a vote. So, you want to see change. What's that? It's
a good point.
Yeah. So, So that, anyway, all of that aside, I think we're on a good path. It's happening quicker and quicker now, which is really encouraging. And we just got to keep plugging away, right? And so what I'm hoping is that the package I put together, just like that TikTok video, I'm hoping that people will take that now and add their own piece of the puzzle. You know, the beauty of it is it's an investigative roadmap that works in any country. So you can just take it and apply it to your own country. I've been working with people in the UK and Germany and Australia to put together their own investigation packages, and so they're doing it now, and they're adding their own pieces, and people are adding on, like Vanguard is buying property like crazy and driving house prices up, and I didn't know that, so somebody informed me about that. And so there's, you know, there's a lot of the pieces of the puzzle that are getting added onto that in their own ways.
Right.
And now people are looking at, you know, when they shut down churches, for example. Now I'm using churches because Hope Springs in Manitoba drove in a la drive-in style, like drive-in theater style, and they were in their cars with their windows rolled up, and they got ticketed and shut down for that. This is during the lockdown. Meanwhile, pictures in the same town of Costco were coming out, and people were shoulder to shoulder. So it doesn't make any sense. But now when you realize that Costco is owned by Vanguard, now it starts making a lot of sense. So they were shutting everything down and pushing people towards Costco, Amazon, Walmart, McDonald's. They were shutting their restaurants, but keeping McDonald's open, right? You know,
Well, they're shutting the middle class. They're like deleting the middle class. They're collapsing the middle class.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So again, it doesn't answer all the questions for sure, but it sure helps people start to figure out. It helps them discern what's actually going on, and then they can start spotting it from themselves. You know, but again, there's a lot more things going on than just this one aspect.
maybe talk about that.
Well, so I said follow the money, and that, you know, that seems to be working out because I'm following the money in other places too, and that seems to be revealing a whole bunch of stuff. Now, I'm not an investigator or an accountant by trade, so this is kind of out of my wheelhouse. I'm a communications person, and I'm just using it as a tool so we can help decipher all of the psychological warfare that's going on, and believe me, it's going on. You know, so I can point to news story after news story. So I'm just trying to find communication tools to help people come along, right? So there's by shutting down restaurants and shutting down small business and pushing everybody towards corporations, it has so many trickle down effects. We know it, you know it. It's, you know, it's decimating local economies. And you can say, well, Walmart gives back to the local communities, but all of the money we give to Walmart, that starts shuffling off to the US, for example. So all of that money, and Costco and Amazon, and that's leaving our country. And so we're really just kind of shooting ourselves in the foot, you know. And then small businesses, they're after it again. They're intentionally attacking small business, especially with this vaccine passport, you know, because the government can't make these rules. So they push them on small business and make the small business owners think that they have to follow these rules when they don't. And so now what it's doing is it's pitting people against people. So they're intentionally trying to divide and conquer, which is, again, it's a communist trick. Hitler did it, Napoleon did it, Machiavelli did it, Sun Tzu did it. It's not new. Divide and conquer it's as old as the day is long. And the second Bonnie Henry started saying we're doing vaccine passes because of the unvaccinated, and then the very next day saying we're going back to masks because of the unvaccinated, she is intentionally trying to cause hatred and incite division. And I'll tell you, you know, the one thing you got to remember is the people aren't your enemy. The people dividing the people, those are your enemy. So she was intentional with what she was doing. She's not for the people, and she's not a good person. And you got to stop being suckered in by that motherly tone and that motherly, you know, face. She is not for the people.
Not at all.
No. No, and I think your first clue, I think I talked about this in my last interview, you know, we know that hospitalization and death rates are mostly contained to the elderly and people with comorbidities. All the stats are out there, so it's not even a debate anymore. And out of those comorbidities, heart disease and heart problems and diabetes are the two biggest culprits, which could both be eliminated or at least alleviated with nutrition and exercise. Now that the science is settled on that, every doctor will tell you diet and exercise, and then you'll start reducing those symptoms. When have you ever seen Bonnie Henry once mention diet and exercise? Never, ever. So if that's not enough of a clue for you, then I don't know if we can help you. So,
Well, yeah, and, these people are being bought, right? Just the same as the doctors are being silenced and replaced. I mean, the doctors are being replaced in significant roles in hospitals for those that have been bought to make sure that this agenda goes through. People are afraid, so they're just they think if they do what they're told that this is gonna go away.
exactly.
Not.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, you might want to trade, you might want your freedom now temporarily while the vaccine pass is in place, but really what are you losing, right? So it might seem that you're getting temporary freedom back, but you're losing it slowly and surely. I mean, we're looking at they're talking about a dose every 6 months. I know that in Israel now they're saying that the new booster shot is effective for at least 12 days. That was the last thing to come out of Israel, which means you're looking, well, I say these things ahead of time because we got to look at what they're saying now, because we've been able to look at where they're going by what they're saying now. So this indicates to me that you're looking at a monthly subscription, right? And if you don't keep up with that monthly subscription, your vaccine pass is not going to be valid anymore, right? So
Yeah, and not only that, but this is replacing your organic immune system. And Canada passed a law saying that they have replaced the word immunity with protection to solidify that. So you're losing what is a natural, amazing immune system that you are literally born with for something
agreed.
synthetic, which means
Yeah.
you will have to ascribe to something for the rest of your life, probably on a monthly basis, because you don't have one anymore that is organic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So, I mean, you can take it now, but then if you get into this monthly subscription business, then if you're not up on it every single month and acquiescing and doing what the government tells you to do and complying, then there goes all that freedom that you thought you were gaining in the beginning. It's never going to go back if you don't fight now. They're saying it's temporary, and we know it's not temporary, and we know that's a bold-faced lie. So yeah, and so you just, people do have to wake up, they've got to get to it. And it's amazing to me, but that they're not, but at the same time it isn't like it going back to that sophisticated plan. We've got to realize what happened. That 2-week shock to our system and the lockdowns, that was a complete disruption of our routines, which extended to 6 weeks, which had left people really confused. And in that time they started hammering us with all this fear messaging. So now people are conditioned after a year and a half, they're fear conditioned. So now they can't get past that. And so there's a lot of people who are not going to be able to make the leap backwards, and it doesn't matter how many stats you show them. And
absolutely, because they've literally circumnavigated every media outlet possible, radio, news, whatever people watch. I mean, I don't watch any of that stuff, nor do I listen to it. And I've never done it my whole life.
right.
So I am in my own bubble. I highly suggest people do this, and that you just do your own little thing, your own research, your own whatever, and just unplug from the garbage, because there is something that the programming is it's so thorough, using people's fear, that it is like complex PTSD, where it does spin your brain upside down.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's just people who are not going to be able to make the jump back, period. And it's funny because I did a video in mid 2020, just showing when they started taking people and putting them in the quarantine hotels. I did a video on that. It required me watching CBC for a few videos. And I'll swear, man, after I was watching that, I was terrified for a while. I just thought we were in the middle of this massive pandemic, and I knew better. Like, I'd already seen all the stats, right? So no wonder people are terrified. It got me suckered in, and I'd only watched like 3 videos, right? And I know what I'm doing with communications, right? So I I do feel for people who are kind of locked into that, because it's so much of a trap, you know. And going back to your immune system, you know, it's funny because if you go to the government websites, you can see the stats, you can see the case counts rise and fall, you can see the death counts rise and fall. And what I think, I'm of the camp who believes that this is absolutely 100% a manufactured bioweapon.
Totally.
And I also believe 100% that they had the vaccine long before they even introduced the virus. So, so what I think though, is I think that they kind of choked on their own hubris, because they created this virus and they expected it to hit like the Spanish flu, where you had 5% of the population decimated with, didn't matter age or comorbidities or anything, and they'd have people dead in the streets, and they're, you know, so that was a very visual reminder that there was an actual pandemic going on. And instead, it spiked. I think we had something very real happening in March. It spiked in end of March, beginning of April, and just plummeted back down. And that was our natural immune system taking over. And I don't think they expected it to be that strong, right? So right off the bat, it was tackled and it was done. So,
well, this is the reason why I believe that they had to go to an extreme in synthetic technology and artificial intelligence with the graphene oxide and all that, because our immune systems are phenomenal.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, it is. I mean, be warned, because we're heading into flu season now. And what I think is, well, I mean, I've read enough to confidently state that I'm pretty sure the vaccinated are spreading the virus now to the unvaccinated. So they're blaming the unvaccinated.
Yeah.
But there are doctors who are saying that this could be 30% of the vaccinated population could die. It can be much more deadly to the vaccinated people, because we walk around with them and we're assuming that they're safe, as per the mainstream media. So I think do take precautions, do take your extra vitamins, you know, vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc. I'm on lysine and selenium and magnesium as well, but you know.
Okay, those are really good to know. I also do think that they are causing the variants.
Oh, absolutely.
Bodies are the ones that are producing it, along with the shedding. So yeah, we've got brewing things that are legit, right? Through synthetic
well, it's still
technology.
Yeah, it's still manufactured, right? And
right, that's why I said synthetic bioweapon technology, because
there are doctors working on all that, and I don't have a link just yet, but I know it just launched, and they're launching as an alternative to the World Health Organization, but an actual ethical one, and they just launched, and so it's going to take a little bit because they've got a huge fight ahead of them. But they're saying, I'm not sure, and I don't know anything about this, but I think it's nettle tea or something is saying that it actually counteracts the spike protein effects. And
is that the pine nettle tea?
Maybe. You know, I don't know. I mean, look into that. I think Vaccine Choice Canada has a lot of information on that. And so that's a great place to start if you're kind of just knowing something's not quite right. Vaccine Choice Canada is a great place to start. awakecanada.org, Action for Canada, the number 4, and Take Action Canada. They're all providing resources and legal documents, and I think that the nettle tea thing is on Vaccine Choice Canada.
Right.
So, yeah, some doctors are coming out with that, because a lot of people are like, how do I counteract this? I'm living with somebody who's vaccinated, and they're a huge danger to me now. You know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And what was your list? Maybe go a little slower for people, because I really think they need to write it down.
Sure. Okay. So Vaccine Choice Canada. That is run by a fantastic man named Ted Kuntz, very smart man. And their sister organization is Action for Canada. And Action for Canada is with the number 4. And so between the two of them, they're actual organizations. They've been, Vaccine Choice Canada has been around for a long time. Ted Kuntz's son, I believe, died from a vaccine injury. So he's very invested in getting the truth out there. So they have all sorts of resources to confirm why you're not being told what you should be told, and here are some resources to study and actually become educated in the things that you're not being told. And if you don't know these things, it's not your fault. They're doing everything they can to make sure that you don't find these things out. And then Action for Canada, these are the guys working with Rocco Gelati, who is a constitutional lawyer from Vancouver, works out of Toronto, and they're the ones who are bringing the lawsuits to BC and Toronto. So they're getting a lot of headway. It's taking longer than they'd hoped, but they also have legal resources there for free, like notices of liability. They have strategic plans. If your employer wants to force you to take the vaccine or wants to try, they can help you out with that. There's a lot of strategies in place right now. And then the other one that I mentioned was Take Action Canada. And I'm actually part of that one. So they engage in a lot of things. They are really aggressive. They're getting stuff done. They are counter narrative, anti-propaganda. So they focus on that. They are also very actively going after schools and anybody, large organizations that want to force students or people into taking vaccines. So they're sending things like notices of liability and getting and ramping it up more and more if they don't listen. So they're getting a lot of things done. So there's a lot of organizations, but on their websites, they have resources galore. There's 911 on side. If you are a police, fire, first responder of any kind, they have a national Zoom meeting that's closed to the public, so you can speak freely of first responders that are really struggling with having to do their job and do the right thing, right? And that's a bigger concern than you think it is. So there's that, and there's a lot of resources in all those websites. So everything that you need to find, you're going to be able to find on those sites.
Okay, and then the list of the supplements that you spoke about, maybe just say each of those slower for people as well,
Sure.
because I know that really concerns a lot of people and they need to know.
Sure. Okay, so I take, along with a lot of people, take vitamin D, which is your sun replacement, because flu season always happens in the winter time, right? So a lot of vitamin D, a lot of vitamin C for your immune system, and zinc. Those things are fairly proven. If you get sick, they would recommend a course of those vitamins along with ivermectin, or in some cases hydrochloroquine, depending on the doctor. But they would really pump you up with vitamin D, vitamin C, and zinc. So just take those things regularly, of course. Now I take lysine because I'm just onto lysine and understanding what that does. So it helps the immune system. And then also selenium. And I take selenium because I have talked to a person on the ground in Africa, and during the height of the AIDS epidemic, they were on the ground trying to help and trying to figure out what they could do. And there was this one tribe in Africa that was not affected by the AIDS virus at all. And it turns out that they had huge amounts of selenium in their lake, and they traced it back to the selenium was boosting their immune system. So I take selenium. That's nothing I don't think you're going to find out in the world, but he was putting together the selenium package, and I don't know what happened to him. I'm pretty sure that somebody would want to put a stop to that. And then the last thing I take is magnesium as well. That kind of helps. What it does is it relaxes your organs. So it helps your blood flow, and it helps airflow much better.
Right. Great. So going back to 2 questions. One is, so where are the Vanguards buying a lot of property and realty?
That's a great question. They're buying them here. They're buying property here, all across Canada and all across the States. So I will try and find the link to the person who figured that out, and I'll send you a link that you can maybe add to the description here.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but I've read it a few times now, so which makes complete sense, because we're seeing house prices rise, and it's just inexplicable, right? So
yeah,
and not only are they buying property, they're buying it at way above cost to drive those prices up, right? Yeah. So sure it's about the money, but at the same time, there really looks like a systematic, really concerted, organized effort to drive our dollar down, to put everybody into poverty. Because once we're in poverty, once we're in debt and can't get out of it, then we are so easy to acquiesce to government demands.
Right. So at that point, let's just say people who own homes,
Mhm.
property, and they're still owing on it. And
Mhm.
they announced the economic collapse.
Right.
So where are these people? What are the things that, or the warnings that we should be giving them as per what this looks like and where it's going?
Yeah, I mean, everybody said it. You got to get out of debt,
Mhm.
right? You know, we have tried really hard to stay out of debt. We are out of debt, and we don't get back into debt. Now that also means that, you know, there's sacrifices. We don't have fancy houses and fancy cars, and we don't take a lot of vacations, but we don't owe money, and I think that's kind of going to be key going forward. I think uh, Bitcoin or crypto, I think it's gonna take another jump. I have some Ethereum right now. I think it's gonna take another jump till about the end of the year. So I think it's going to jump up another maybe 25% before the end of the year, and then I think it's going to be end of that. All the countries are putting in cryptocurrency. China is really trying hard to get rid of cryptocurrency. So and then I've been hearing some stuff out of China that they're talking about maybe taking over the world currency
Mhm.
in early next year. So what that would mean, and you know what, I don't like scaring people, but I think it's maybe this is a healthy little wake up call. If they take over the world currency, that means the US dollar is no longer in charge. And the US dollar is backed by oil. Apparently, the Chinese crypto dollar is going to be backed by gold. So, and I know from some people that gold, there were a lot of restrictions on gold that have just been put on, and a lot of rules have been changed, meaning that large companies can't sell off billions of dollars worth of gold and keep manipulating it at the price it's at, because it doesn't make any sense. Our dollar, the US dollar, they're worth nothing almost at this point.
Mhm.
Gold should be upwards of at least $5,000 an ounce. Some people say 7 to 10. So if China reverses the US hold on the global dollar, that means the US no longer has the ability to print money,
Mhm.
and they can't print themselves out of debt. And they are trillions and trillions of dollars into debt, which means they're a third world country overnight. Canada goes down with them. And I know that's scary stuff. I
Mhm.
know, but you know, you got to get out of debt. I would hold some gold and I would hold some Bitcoin, but I'd sell it probably at the end of December.
Mhm.
Um, but that's my opinion. You know,
What
we
about,
invested in Bitcoin early last year and we did all right, obviously. So we sold it all, and then I got back into Ethereum for a bit, and I'm going to sell it again at the end of the year because I think it's going to take a dive after
right?
that. So
So yeah, I mean, if people are owing a little bit left on their house, and this unannounced crash, because it will not be announced, it'll just happen, it'll catch everyone completely off guard.
yeah,
They will like suddenly owe, 1 million
yeah,
to
yeah,
a
and
sibling, right? Like, if even if it's a small amount you're owing, by the time the crash hits, they'll say that they've got you for, you know, a lot more because of the, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and that's easier said than done for a lot of people. A lot of people are locked into homes. They got into the home buying frenzy, and understandable. You know,
Yeah.
it's why not lock into a house now before they're hugely expensive? But now we know why they're hugely expensive,
Mhm.
and uh, yeah, I think it's a good time to really look long and hard at where your financiers are at, and you know, because things are going to be changing. And from what I hear, there are concerted efforts to squeeze the food supply, so go buy food. And the other thing I'm hearing is that there are going to be power outages this year. Looks like they're foreshadowing. It's funny because if you go back to the virus, the coronavirus, most people, and from the sounds of it, your listeners would probably know that there was something called Event 201 in December or October of 2019, I believe, and that was basically a scripted pre-practice event for the virus, and it was just basically, you know, event for event exactly how it played out in 2020. So they did the same thing in the beginning of this year. They held another event, and Klaus Schwab is at the head of that one as well, and he talked about how our internet and power grids are at the mercy of hackers. So they need to immunize the internet like they do with people, and make it as safe for against hackers and misinformation. So we all know where they're heading with that. But
Mhm.
they did an event 201 like event, but they did it with power outages.
Right.
So you're looking at power outages probably this year.
Mhm. Well, and I think that's a part of them wanting to reset the internet period and maybe make it into an international passport system.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. And that's coming. They're already talking about
and that's full control, and that's completely, you no longer have the internet. What you have is, controlled, censored. Um, it's China, really. It is
it.
how China is working. This to me all seems very saturated with the way that China works.
Yeah, with the social credit system, and there's already companies in Canada. I've already researched them. They're already set up to do social credit systems, and that's just not stuff you want. There goes your freedom of speech. There goes your freedom of choice. It's gone right now. The good news is, because again, I don't like dwelling on all the fear stuff. What combats fear? What's the best thing to combat fear? And that's love, right? And so we just need to keep encouraging people. It seems like it's scary on the other side here. It seems like there's a lot of big things. It seems like everybody on the planet's out to try and kill you, you know but if we band together and we work together, an old adage that I've always used, I grew up saying it over and over again, was united we stand, divided we fall, right? And that is the counter to
Mhm.
divide and conquer, right? And
Absolutely.
my grandparents always said that because they were in Second World War, right? So they said this is how you do it. So united we stand, divided we fall, and the more of us working together,
Mhm.
and we have to be careful and considerate, and also I think we need to learn to organize more, because we're working against something that's extremely sophisticated. But don't let them divide us, and realize that the more we work together and the more we're gracious with each other, kind with each other out of love, that counteracts the fear that they're going through. And why wouldn't you? There's a whole bunch of scary stuff, and
Yeah. A
so.
lot of my viewers, and I totally agree, and I think that's really good advice, because we need to stay out of the fear zone through this all. And ultimately, this is an opportunity for a very unique kind of evolution
Mhm,
to the
agreed.
next stage. If we just, because this has been going on for eons, the way that this realm works. So
Mhm,
this is just, I think we're all getting to the place where enough is enough,
mhm,
and we're done with these tactics
mhm.
that have been repeated, you know, ad infinitum. Um, so a lot of my viewers would want to know, is there any place in the world that's safe?
That's a fantastic question. Yes, but for how long would be my answer. We talked about homesteading with a bunch of groups and going up north of BC, and there are places you can get 150 acres for $600,000. And each family, 15 families, takes 2 acres and then keeps the rest for farmland. That's affordable for a lot of people. And then we talked about Mexico. We've looked at Costa Rica. I might relook at Uruguay now. Um, but how long? If it is a global thing and we all run, how long are you going to be safe? Are you just delaying the inevitable? And I think, moving up north of BC, like a lot of people are doing, you're just buying your time. That's about it. It's not, I don't think you're going to avoid everything forever. So for me and my family, we've discussed it at length, and we're going to stay and fight, and because we're not going to give in to tyranny, right? But that's us,
Yeah.
right? There are people they've got young kids, and that's just a ridiculous option. You got to just keep those kids safe. My kids are both teenagers, and they think for themselves now, so they make their own choices, and
Right.
they're on board. But that's for us. Everybody has to make their own decision on that. But for me, I just think we're just buying time against the inevitable. So we're going to do our best to fight as long as we can, and until they shut us down, which, if Trudeau has his way, is not going to be too long from now with the
Well,
pushing.
exactly.
Mhm.
Um, the thing that I wonder about, because China has its hands everywhere in everything,
Mhm.
a lot of the second and third world countries are completely vulnerable in ways that first world countries aren't. So
Right.
even though it might buy you time, how much time when you have, some great force that could just come in and basically do what it wants? Because I'm not
Yeah.
certain they're interested in leaving places alone.
No, I don't think so either. And you maybe some mountain in the Rockies or something by yourself, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing, when third world countries are hurting and everybody's poor and they all want a taste of the pie, communism never comes in with an iron fist. It always comes in with a velvet glove, and then once you're hooked, then that's when the iron fist comes out, right? But um yeah, I like I say, for us, we're gonna stick around.
Mhm.
um who knows where this is going to go. You know the other thing is, I'm also aware of a lot of things that are happening, like that World Health Organization, I the Global Health Council, I think they're calling themselves. But then also in Canada, you have to know that there's an army of people behind the scenes, and these are ex-military, ex-police, ex-CSIS, all sorts of people who have experience and knowledge and the skills to fight back. And I'm really, really happy that Trudeau has ticked off the veterans at this point, right? Who are super mad at him because there's an army on side. So when it looks like they're winning and everything's just going smoothly for them, I think if things were going smoothly for them, we would have been into vaccine passports by last year, easy.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. And what I think is, again, choking on their own hubris, they think we're all stupid
Mhm.
and we're ants
Mhm.
as far as they're concerned. Right. So I think they just thought we would be complete pushovers and we would know what was going on and they would just go through their plan. It would be super easy. And they're shocked to find out that the global hive mind is much more intelligent than anything they can put together. And so, sure, all of this stuff has happened from history, and we can see examples of history and how they've taken over, and we can see them doing it again. But you know what? Those societies never had the benefit of history, and they never had the benefit of instant access to the total sum of human knowledge. So the info sharing that's going back and forth, despite the censorship and all that, it's been incredible. And they are sussing things out so fast,
Mhm.
and they're putting it up online so quick. I think one of the best examples was the PCR testing that we all know was misused and producing false positives. On January 6th of this year, they changed the World Health Organization changed the parameters to the PCR test. So if you're cycling at 35 to 40,000 cycles, you're going to get a positive test even if you don't have COVID. But if you cycle them at 25 to 30,000, then you're going to get a more accurate testing. And the World Health Organization changed those parameters on January 6th of this year, January 6th being the day Biden got inaugurated. So everybody pointed that out, and my social media was lit up with people saying, look what they did. They changed the parameters, meaning all the case counts are going to go down now. They're going to make it look like Biden is the hero. And that's what they were saying. And 2 weeks later, sure enough, PCR counts, case counts just plummeted. They took a dive, right? And Bonnie Henry got on the news right then and said, case counts have gone way down. We don't know why, but I wouldn't get a false sense of security. Like, she literally said that in a press conference. That's when you know she's lying straight up. Like, she knows exactly what she's doing, right? So that's a great example. People are on these websites. They are comparing today's web pages to web pages on Internet Archives. They're seeing what's changed, how it's changed. There's people on this, and they're sharing that information like crazy. So if you're looking in the right spots,
Right.
So I don't think our global elite, as you'd want to put them, thought we were this smart,
No.
right? So I think their plans were set way back, and I think the things they wanted to do last year, they're just getting to now, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and I think a lot of people are taking footage and whatever. That's why I say download the video, download this video immediately.
Yeah.
Um, take footage, take your phone, take pictures of the stats that you see, whatever you can do to catch it right in midair, do
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
and keep that and then circulate it. Keep your guns. Don't let happen what happened to Australia, where they fabricated an event
Hmm.
and it was just so that they would remove the guns from everyone, and
Yeah.
they gave them up. Like, be smart, keep what you need to
Hmm.
defend yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And even if you don't want to shoot somebody, which is pretty normal as a
Mhm.
human being, um, you've got to look at food supply as well. So it's good to get that PAL anyway, if you can get it, or crossbows are still, they're legal to get.
Mhm.
You're going to need something for hunting probably. So you've got to learn to hunt and clean an animal properly. And because food supply is going to be, it's going to be tough,
And sign up and take your gun classes so you can get
Yeah.
certified. Do these things, learn how to use a ham radio,
Hmm.
get your certification for that. Start thinking along the lines of, survival, in the sense of, when the grid goes down, what do you need? Do you have a means by which to stay warm, eat?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Get yourself a little barbecue with propane, lots of propane,
Lots of propane, yeah.
generators,
Yeah,
all those things. I agree, stock up on wood if you have a fireplace.
yeah.
Yeah, it's super important. And see, now, if there are people out there who are skeptical, put it this way. If you have all this stuff and you don't need it, that's better than needing it, not having it, right? So
Totally.
if I'm wrong about all this stuff, I'm happy to admit that I was wrong on all this stuff, and then we move on, but
Yeah,
if there's a 1% chance that we're right, then maybe, just maybe, you should get out and get this stuff, you
right.
know. So,
So, the question I have is actually about the Middle East. Now, I do agree that Russia and China are allied. They're secretly allied.
absolutely, yeah,
That's
it's all communism.
Yeah.
And if you go to my site, I have a whole blog post called That's Communism, Folks, and it's Communism 101. So it's a film of, can never remember his name now, but it was out of the 60s, and he's explaining how communism propaganda works. And I used the 60s video because it has no connection with today, and it just, you can go through it and go, holy cow, that's happening, that's happening, that's happening. So communism is communism. There's two sides. There's the political side, the ideological side, and then there is the Marxist side that just comes in and shoots you, right? And so everybody's got this false narrative of communism being like the Smurfs, right? and it's not. It's like the Smurfs after Gargamel finds their village, right?
Yeah.
So it's, we look at the Holocaust and how many people died
FEMA,
in that, but what's that?
it's the FEMA Smurfs.
Yeah, the famous Smurfs, yeah. Yeah, so we look at, the Holocaust and how many Jewish people died, and but we don't realize that communists have killed way more than that. Communism has killed, you've got like the Bolshevik war back in
Mhm.
the early 1900s, and that was what, 10 million people. So communism kills. It's not a happy thing, right? So,
No, no. Hence why they're, they've built all of these camps and they have a lot of body bags waiting.
mhm.
So
Well,
it's
just look at Falun
just
Gong.
because your friend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look at Falun Gong in China. Just research that. They're taking people and live harvesting their organs, and that's been going on for years. I mean, that's not enough for you. But you said you had questions about the Middle East.
Yeah. So where do you think the Middle East plays into this with this?
That's a good question. The Middle East is kind of a crapshoot at best. It's still cowboy land as far as I can tell. I think the Saudi Arabia Yemen thing is a pretty bad thing. I think Yemen is really taking the hit on that, and I know it is odd to me in that about a month and a half ago, Amnesty International put out a damning report against Canada, saying that our military I think vehicles are being used in the war against Yemen, and Yemen is just getting trumped, right? So a lot of human rights are being violated with that, and a lot of Amnesty International rules and regulations, all of the things that we agreed not to do is happening over there, and Canada's been involved. And so there's this huge damning report against Canada and Trudeau, and it didn't even make a blip on the mainstream news. And then I go back to Amnesty International, and they removed it altogether. So I had to find reference to that, and it's gone. It's completely gone. And I read it myself. So it's concerning that somebody has the kind of power to just remove the evidence of our involvement in human rights crimes, right? So that's one thing. We know that Trudeau is heavily in bed with Saudi Arabia, and he's heavily in bed. I mean, the Aga Khan is the unofficial king of the Muslims. So we know that he's in thick with that, and what all that entails, I don't know. The only thing I've really kind of looked at is the Afghani thing right now, and obviously because that's making the news. And the only suspicion I have is they're pulling people out of there by the plane loads right now, and it makes me wonder who they're pulling over here. It makes me wonder if it's not more military than we realize. And if it's refugees just trying to get out of a bad regime, then I don't want to cast any shadow on that at all, because they've seen it, and they need the help, of course, right? But I'm wondering if there's some soldiers coming over here. I'm expecting military action within a year in Canada.
I would agree with you, and I would also agree that they have to get their military from a different country who would have absolutely zero empathy for the citizens, because they know we won't kill each other.
Exactly.
We won't round each other up and put our brothers and sisters in camps. So they have to get people from places.
Yeah, and again, I just want to take a side. That's some scary stuff for a lot of people to hear, and I just want to apologize. Like I personally have a faith, and I'm that kind of makes it so we've done this whole last year and a half without any fear in our household. So this stuff doesn't scare me, but it is scary stuff for sure. And I kind of talk casually about it, and I forget that a lot of people are this is terrifying stuff to a lot of people, and I understand that.
Well, and I do think that what we are all facing and going to face comes with it's a really good opportunity for your faith and for what you really are and who you really are to stand, because what we are made of is something that is far stronger than any of this. And I really feel like people need to remember who they are, and they need to remember that you are made out of star stuff. You are made eternal. You are made in perfection of strength that doesn't come from an earthly place.
Right. So, exactly. Yeah. You're way more than you think you are. Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because, all of this talk about identity and whatever identity, right? I think what it's caused is this identity pandemic in itself, because people have forgotten who they are, and they don't understand what their place is in this world, because, just keeping it fairly safe. People are identifying as right wing or left wing, for example, and that's not who you are, right? Your political identity is not who you are. And so we've got this identity disease in the Western society that we self-identify with these things that in the grand scheme of things are so unimportant. It's not who you are, right? And you're right. We've got to refine that, that we have purpose, we have destiny, we have this connection, as you say it, to the universe. For me, I'm just a straight up Jesus loving child of God, right? So you're right, there's way more than just what we're talking about here. So as scary as it is, there's more. And if we band together and help each other remember who we are, then that conquers everything.
And remember, because I am proof, and then I really want to impart this, I am proof of being here today because of literally many miracles that not only I witnessed, but people around me witnessed when they were happening. So
Really?
that absolutely. So what we are capable of is infinite. The miracles that the Father and the Mother can easily do through us, infinite. And
100%.
you know Isa, or you know Jesus, I know him as Isa. So there is nothing in this material plane that is fixed, because there's no such thing as material. And that's the other thing I want to impart, because ultimately everything is made out of particles. So, you know, there has to be a comprehension of your infiniteness, of that which, you know, can work through you, and you be an instrument of the divine.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
And yeah, you just got to remember, you got way more power than you think you are. And we fall into this false narrative that we're victims, and we're just not. And I think that's, you know, when you come down to it, that's one of the core key things to globalists or communists or whatever. They don't want you to know how much power you actually have, because you have a lot, right?
exactly. So I'll just give an example, because, you know, we've been at this for an hour and a half, and I know we have to
Oh,
wrap
wow.
up. I don't know if you want to say anything else, but I wanted to leave people with a story that will give them hope as to the nature of a miracle. I've had many in my life, but just, you know, to give people a really good idea that anything, we are capable of anything. And the Father, the Divine Father, the Divine Mother, Isa, the family that we come from, the royal family of the true royal family, the divine. I was driving behind a massive truck that was transporting, they were loggers, but they were massive, massive trees, like just ginormous. It's probably the largest one I ever saw, actually. And I'm the car right behind this, and I see one chain snap. The force of the chains at these, okay, they're massive, right? Then I see the other one snap. Then I see the other one snap. Then I see the other one snap. And there were like 6 lanes, and I was right in the middle. So I couldn't really get anywhere. I had to stay where I was.
Yeah.
And I could see the trees coming. I don't want to call them logs, because they're like massive, humongous trees.
Yeah.
Coming right over me to land on my car, like all of them.
Wow.
And I'm watching this in slow motion.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I'm gonna be flattened. And I was driving a Sprint, which is like a pop can. And I'm looking up, and I'm like, oh, looks like it's gonna be my time. Literally, as I'm watching it come down, 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 the next thing I know, my car is on the side of the road, stopped.
Wow.
And I'm just looking around like I didn't even know how I got there.
Yeah. Cool.
And there wasn't a single car harmed. They literally landed in all these weird ways, and the cars were all like moved.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
I know.
an instant.
Yeah.
In an
Oh, yeah. 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 We've got a few stories ourselves, and yeah, no, that's a great story. So,
is there anything else you'd like to say?
well, I think I put a healthy fear into people, unfortunately, on a few things, but you know, through our whole talk, I'm just hoping people can take away that, you know, there is hope. Always there's hope. And, you know, we just got to start working together. You know, one thing I am working on, and maybe it's good advice for people working on proximity community groups. So if you've chosen not to be vaccinated, there's a good chance that they're going to amp it up, and you could have property taken, you could have kids taken. So we're working on people who can be here at the drop of a dime, and can be at our house or in our neighborhood really fast. Because I think you're going to have to just cluster to protect against these things soon. So that's definitely work on community groups, because you're not going to have online community communication too much longer, and amp that stuff up. But again, the last word I just want to say is just there's always hope, and it's there's stories of repression all through history, and there's stories of coming through that in massive victory all through history. So
and I would really like to recommend people doing more research into the breadcrumbs, and maybe even discovering all the vanguards in every country, and maybe even that the vanguards are the vanguards in other countries and who they are. Maybe some people can even find out exactly who we're dealing with here.
Send letters to your US senators if you trust them, and because Vanguard's an American company, so they can find a lot of stuff out, so
just knowledge is power, and it does say in the Bible that my people perish for lack of knowledge.
It's true. This is true. So
let us have knowledge and not perish. Let us have knowledge and not perish.
Exactly. I think at the end of the day, everything's going to be okay. We just need to help people wake up and be kind and gracious and patient when
it might end in Armageddon, but that's still that still ends okay.
Sure. That's a topic for another day, I guess.
Well, it would be maybe great to follow up with you
sure,
after more information comes, and we could maybe do part 2.
Absolutely. I can't believe it's been as long as it has. So it just flew by really quickly.
I know.
Come back anytime.
It was amazing having you. We're looking forward to part 2. I know all of my viewers are definitely waiting for that.
Well, I've got some big things coming. So
Perfect.
When that rolls out, I'm happy to come and talk about it. So
great.
Okay.
Thanks, Cris. And give everybody your website, please, slowly, so that.
Sure. It's onenation.ca, but that's WN as in we win, onenation.ca.
Great. And I will put all the links down on this video as well. And if you can find that other one that you were talking about and any other links that you want on there, just forward them to me.
Okay.
And this has been fantastic.
Yes.
It's been a blessing.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, thanks, Cris. And we'll talk soon.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye.